We all visit a funeral home at some point in our lives. It's where we send off the deceased, and naturally, it's often rumored to be a place with heavy energy. But tonight's story isn't just about an eerie atmosphere. It's about a relentless cycle of terror experienced by a man who worked in a hospital's basement funeral home right after graduating college. The funeral home was located deep in the hospital's basement, and the office was down there too. The office's front was made entirely of glass, giving them a clear view of the outside. Crucially, through that glass, they could see the elevator that went up to the main hospital. And that's where the problem began every night. Precisely around 2:30 a.m., the elevator would move on its own. No one getting off, no one getting on. At first, he assumed it was just a prank, but as it repeated, the chills started setting in. 0:40 to 1:45. The evidence of fear, wet footprints, and the veteran's claim. The co-worker on his shift, a 39-year-old bachelor who was a veteran of that morgue, eventually brought it up as he sat in the office. "Did you see the old man and the kids getting off that elevator and wandering around the wake rooms and reception areas?" That night, because there were no funerals, the lights in the chapel area were all turned off. In the pitch black, a sudden chock-chock sound of slippers dragging echoed down the corridor. He was startled and looked out, and his co-worker whispered, quote, "You heard that too, right?" He grabbed the flashlight and went out, but there was no one. However, on the floor, there were several distinct wet shoe prints. The tracks started at the elevator and led directly toward the body holding room. They reported it immediately when the owner came in and checked the CCTV, but the footage showed absolutely nothing. The spirit leaves no recording, but its wetness was left in reality. A few months later, a deceased man arrived from Chuncheon. The official cause was a fall, but the body was highly unusual. While falling usually means landing on the front or back, this man had both the front and back of his head shattered, his nose was broken, and his teeth were all smashed. Furthermore, he looked like a rough sleeper, his clothes were ragged, and the smell was intense. The family was even stranger. Usually, families try not to cry loudly when a person dies, believing that wailing can make the soul linger and look back, preventing the Grim Reaper from taking them. But this family wailed and shouted his name as if they were performing for someone. The worker, who had heard countless cries, felt this wasn't genuine grief. After preparing the body, they bound his wrists, waist, and thighs and placed him in the cold storage. When the worker returned to the wake room, the family's wailing stopped instantly, and they were calmly sorting through insurance documents. He went back to the holding room to prepare for the Ipguan enrobing ceremony. That's when a quiet, painful groan, an "you" sound, came from the freezer. He dismissed it as the freezer running, but then it came again. He instinctively muttered. "What did you say?" Fear gripped him, and he ran back to the office. When he and the manager opened the freezer, the ropes he had used to bind the body were all untied. The manager exclaimed, "He must be alive." They took the stiff body out, and his previously closed eyes were now slightly open. Shaking him did nothing, and he was indeed confirmed dead. The most terrifying detail was his hands. When the body was first prepared, his hands were laid out straight, but now he was clenching his hands into a tight, visceral fist with such force that his fingernails were digging into his flesh. He was dead, but his rage was fighting to get out. As they put the body back, the manager, who had worked there for years, said he had seen dead people come close to life, Sagyong before, but never anything like this. This manager was unique. He had experience, but he also could see ghosts. Preparing for the ceremony, the chilling sound came again from the freezer, this time calling out clearly, "Yeah!" Too scared to move, he ran back to the office. The manager came to the holding room and simply asked the worker to bring him. soju, and 1 dried squid. Confused, the worker brought the items. The manager told him to leave, taking the liquor and squid into the body holding room alone. Watching the CCTV from the office, the manager took the body out and placed the shot glass and squid in front of it. For about an hour, he sat there, drinking the soju and squid as if talking to someone. When the manager emerged, he called the worker and told him to go to the family. He bluntly asked the distraught family, quote, "Did this person truly die by accident?" The family was caught off guard and insisted it was an accident, getting angry when the manager pressed further. Back in the office, the manager revealed the astonishing truth. He had gone into the room and conversed with the deceased man. The dead man claimed he had been bullied since childhood due to low mental development and was ultimately abandoned by his parents. He was living like a servant at his uncle's house, but the uncle's son had severely beaten him, and that's how he died. For accidental deaths, there must be a police investigation document along with the death certificate. The next day, when the police investigated the body, they clearly stated, quote, "This is not an accidental death. The body was eventually moved to another hospital for an autopsy. How frustrated must he have been to struggle like that inside the freezer and to relay his story so desperately to a funeral home worker." A few nights later, the worker had a dream. An unknown person, whom he believed to be the deceased, kept repeating one phrase, "Thank you." The final conclusion, though unknown, was heavily implied. Dealing with the deceased is one thing, but dealing with the spiritual is another. It takes immense strength to work at a funeral home. But this story proves that human cruelty is sometimes a far more terrifying horror than any ghost. What do you believe the autopsy results showed? And what would you do if you were standing in front of that elevator, moving all alone at 2:30 a.m.?